Robert Nourse had no idea what he was starting when he began a little business called the Executive Committee, now known as TEC. With hindsight, the idea was simple enough. Chief executive officers together in small groups for the purpose of networking and learning better ways of doing business.
When I founded TEC back in 1957, I couldn't have dreamed it would one day grow into the wonderful organization that it has become. TEC and all the people involved have exceeded my greatest expectations, and I feel so lucky to have had the idea that was the seed of the present-day TEC.
His son says he wasn't interested in establishing an organization or an empire. Jim Handy, who worked for Bob, and later he and Harry Dennis bought TEC from Bob, this is what he says about Bob. He said, "I found it rather fascinating, this little product. A process he developed for executives was really a reflection of his own personality. He was a very smart, very strong, very mature person. He was a humble guy in the best sense of the word."
The informality, I think, was the most important part, that people sharing their true concerns and getting them to be relaxed enough to admit that they had problems.
Nourse espoused values in business, things like honesty and treating people fairly. He lived the standard. He was the keeper of the standard.
It was a cold and damp October day in 1957 when the first TEC group came together. Actually, there were 6 members present plus Bob. Bob sat at the head of the table. Ken Finley sat to his immediate right, Finley Adhesives. Robert Wagner, E.R. Wagner Manufacturing Company. Charlie Mellows, Charter Manufacturing Company. Charter remains a member of TEC today. Irv Rouser, Shorewood Mills. Don Taylor, Merrill Manufacturing Company. And Tom Tanner, Zenith Center Products. Well, it was very quiet at the start of the meeting. None of these CEOs were really willing to say very much, and Bob sat there holding his breath. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, someone said, "I have a problem."
In those days, we wore business suits in our sleep, so you can imagine how excited I was when halfway into our very first TEC meeting, all the members removed their jackets and ties, rolled up their sleeves, and said, "Now, let's get down to work."
Bob kept notes on his one-on-ones with his members, used the old black book, and we have boxes of these black books from the early days of TEC. In fact, this is how it all began, right here. This is at a TEC company party, and this was so typical of Bob. He's kind of over by himself a little bit, having a beer, standing under the tree, kind of contemplating life. Of course, the other side, now he was married to Grace Nourse, who was a total live wire. I understand she embarrassed him all the time. She was quite the opposite of Bob. Later in life, he and Grace would spend their winters in Mexico, and that is where he wrote this history of the Nourse family. And in this is the story of TEC.
Congratulations to all of you. Thanks to you, my dream has been kept alive. I wish you all the luck in the world as I continue my dream. Now, as the fellows told me back in 1957, let's get down to work. God bless.